Hi YouTubers, it's George in the shed. It's been raining last night, so I won't be going down the motorhome, but this is the old starter motor from my motorhome. I've not worked on one of these before. I've only worked on the old-fashioned style starter motors. There's basically two sorts of starter motor. There's one which is called a Bendix style, and what happens with that is when the electric motor gets power, it throws the gear out and hopefully it engages with the teeth, and with age it wears the flywheel with the teeth and also the starter motor. This is called a pre-engage starter motor, and what it does is the solenoid here operates a lever, pushes the gear onto the flywheel gear, and then it applies power to the motor, so it creates less wear on the flywheel and the gear, and it's more efficient as well. You haven't got that bang, and the old Bendix style starter motors can actually jam, and years ago to unseize the starter motor you had to put the car in first gear and push it backwards, and it would release the gear or rock the vehicle, disengage. So with these pre-engage, it pre-engages the gear of the motor onto the flywheel, and then it applies power to the electric motor, which is what this solenoid does. It does two things: it operates the gear and it puts power to the motor. And I'll try and demonstrate that from this battery. This is a leisure battery, but it can also be used as a starter motor battery. Now what I've got set up is this battery is for use as a leisure or for starting engines. It's a dual purpose battery. I've got the negative of the battery connected to the frame of the motor, and what I'm going to do, the smallest terminal on the solenoid, I'm going to put power to it. It will clunk and spark, and you should see this move over, and this is the pre-engage bit. You'll notice that the actual gear will not rotate, and here we go, it's going to be a bit of clunking and sparks. Ready? So that's telling me that the actual solenoid is activating the gear. So that's the first test. The second test will be just to spin the actual motor, and that's using the positive lead of the battery directly onto this red wire. You can see it coming out of here, so I'm going to disconnect it there, and that's where I'm going to put this red wire, and the electric motor should turn. But this only shows you that it does work. It won't show up any intermittent faults you might have, like intermittent brushes. Okay, so disconnect that. This is, you can see it, it's quite a big wire. I'm hoping that that will run the motor. Right, let's connect some power to it, and I've got to be a bit careful here I don't short anything out to the body when I'm doing this test, and I'll just put the camera onto the end and it should rotate. One more time. There we go. You'll see it spin. Okay, so that's showing that the motor will turn and the solenoid will work on mechanically engaging it. The next step is to apply 12 volt to this bolt here, not that one. Okay, and that will go to the battery, and then put 12 volt on the small wire and it should engage the motor and the solenoid, so that should go across and the motor should spin. So that's the next step I've got to do. First test is to test the action of the solenoid. There we go, that works. Now this is where it gets a bit awkward. Connect the power feed to the main bolt. Okay, so we should have the solenoid and the motor spinning now. We should have. Here we go. Try again. I think I've got a bad earth connection. Try again. Can you see that? So that's a test you can do on the electric motor. So just to recap, the solenoid, as well as pushing the gear forward into the flywheel, which is called pre-engage, the solenoid also is a big relay and it connects the power to the motor. And both of these need to work for it to start your engine. So the red to the battery goes there, positive of the battery. The chassis is the negative of the battery, or the negative of your engine. The small wire is what powers the solenoid, and it's about 10 amps. So you can actually test that individual of the motor. So you can put 12 volt, if you disconnect this red wire here and put 12 volt onto that, the motor should spin without the gear moving forward, with it connected on there and applying 12 volt to there. This should move forward and also spin the motor, but it won't test for intermittent faults like that. You have to strip it and check the brushes, and this has got a rusty terminal here, which I'm going to do something about that, because that can cause problems with it starting. Now I'm going to take the solenoid off, and I've disconnected this red wire, the big red wire. So there's no electrical wire connections on here at all, and at the front there's some small nuts, which is 7mm. Some of them have got Phillips screws or screw heads, but I've never took one of these apart, so I'm just guessing. So I'm going to start by loosening these, which are not too bad. Right, stop the camera while I take those off. Okay, it's under tension, this section, so press it in, take the nut off, like that. Put that nut over there where I know where it's gonna, I can find it, and it's springing off like that. Okay, Put that to one side. And this bit must engage somehow. Don't know how that comes off. Does it unscrew? Don't know. No idea how that comes off. Actually twist it. Oh, it's got a spring in it or something. No idea. Ah. There's a rubber thing here. I don't know what that does. Ah. Not sure what that does. I don't know where this threads or what. Anyway, we'll leave that for the time being. It's the brushes I'm really interested in, which is in here. Let's have a look, see if they come off. Okay, what I'm going to do, to stop the camera, I'm going to take these off. That's another size spanner. I don't know how this comes off. This is a 10mm spanner, and I've undone it here, but the nut's not come off, but the rod has come unthreaded from the casting. Put that to one side. Blind leading the blind here. Have we got this one? Oh, blimey. That's done it. Similar to the other one. The nuts are jammed on the threads, but the rod's coming out of this end. Took these long rods out, and I'm undoing these two here, which is an 8mm. I don't know what these do. I'm going to end up with springs and bits and pieces everywhere if I'm not careful. But when you've never took something apart before, it's a challenge. Nothing's moving. I have to take this off. No idea. Don't know what I'm doing. I have to. That's it. There we go. Ooh. Blimey. These are the brushes. Well, the armature looks pretty good at first impressions, and this is the brush carrier here. To remove this, I think you have to unspring those brushes there because they connect to there, and the other two go to earth or chassis. So I should be able to undo that one. Let's turn it over, and that one. And I think there's a way of doing it, but I need two hands to do it. I think what you do, you push a screwdriver under there, pull the spring back and lift the brush out under here. I'll see if I can do that. What you do is you hold your pliers or something under this clip there and pull it, and then you can pull the brush out, but I need to hold this steady somehow. Otherwise I'm going to catch my finger in it. Okay, that's what the brush carrier looks like. And as I say, you've these springs, you put something underneath it and you can prise them up like pliers or something, and the brushes come out. Looking at the brushes, they look in really good condition. I'll get the armature out. No scoring or burning on the armature. It looks in really good condition on the bearings. So I'm a bit puzzled as to what's causing the trouble. Yeah, very puzzled. Just checking this feed wire here, which passes all the current into here, and checking that these joints are soldered there, because they make electrical connections to the field windings. They look pretty good, because normally if you've got an intermittent starter motor, it's going to be an electrical wiring connection, and the brushes are okay. The main feed here is okay. Just hold up to the camera, you can see it's soldered there, there, and there, and they're all good solder joints. You can see the brushes, and you normally get two brushes which are shorter than the other if it's worn, and that one's that length, that one's that length. They're all the same length, so there's no signs of them even wear. Bit baffled at the moment. Anyway, I'm going to clean up the armature and put that back, and clean it up basically now. Now I've cleaned the armature up. There's no sign of scoring or wear, but the thing you've got to check, bear in mind I've not worked on this particular model of starter motor. I've always worked on the really old-fashioned ones called Bendix type, but what you've got to look for is any of these segments loose, so you just pull them out just to make sure, to see if any of these are loose, and there isn't any. The other thing to do is to ensure that some have got an air gap between here and some are solid, and these have got the air gap, so make sure they're not clogged, which they're not. Because of the speed of the motor, it tends to spin out any dust. And the last thing is to check the segments, just in case there's a dead segment, and you can do it with a meter and on continuity or low resistance, and what you're looking for 0.7, 0.7, and I'm just going to mark where I start. Scratch the end very slightly. That's it, and I'll know where I start, and I'll work all the way around checking them. Point 7, 0.7, next one, 0.7, now that one's, yeah, that's okay, yeah, yeah. Back to the beginning, and they're all okay and all reading the same resistance on the low resistance setting, so that's okay. Now it's a matter of reassembling, and I don't think I'll show you that because I think it's straightforward. It's just the reverse procedure of what I've been doing.